No, now we are.
Oh, okay.
Now we're live.
I was gonna say when we open it up for for you guys coming in, I just say, hey, Ish Monroe said glory hole yesterday on the show.
Oh man, it's happened more than once. Believe me.
Yeah. He goes, I was fishing the glory hole and I lost it. I couldn't keep it all together. So, all right. Well, it's really exciting right now here on TRS Live and in the Reel Shot because a lot more pros have shown up, especially the man to my right, Brent Ehrler.
Ehrler.
Damn it.
Dude, I just covered this.
I know. I'm so terrible. Here I'm thinking all about my hair right now. I wanted you to correct me.
You jacked him up with his hair.
Yeah,
they were talking glory holes. And,
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I mean.
He wasn't. You were. Let's just keep this straight here.
Well, I mean,
Poor guy.
I just want everybody to have a good time. That's all I'm here for. I'm here to party. It's Friday. It's Friday Fish Friday. So, okay, man,
Unreal.
you made the cut.
I did. Yeah, it was touch and go. So the first day I was in 21st place. I was maybe 2 pounds out of the cut, but the 20th place cut that's what it's. Sorry, 20th place is the first cut. I was 2 pounds out of that going into that second day and started off kind of slow. You know, it wasn't really easy. I think I dropped down to maybe 27th during the day.
Yep. And
then I kind of chipped away at them, and something changed on the water while we were out there. It was really weird. I was fishing for largemouth, and I was in an area, and just all of a sudden I look up, and there's all these fish that are sitting, you know, shallow water, largemouth, but they're suspended right on the surface. I mean, they're sitting on the surface of the water.
You could see him.
I could see him.
Really?
And so I look, and I throw to one, and he swims right over and eats my bait. And I go, oh, that was kind of strange. So, and then I look up, and there's 5 of them along where I could see him. So it changed things for me. It was just something switched. Those fish got up kind of high in the column like that, and I was able to see him. And I think basically for the rest of the afternoon, I caught almost everything by seeing him first and throwing to him.
Really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and it changed things for me. And
for the conditions
never
that most of the guys are talking about, it was, you know, stained water.
Yeah,
and
yeah. And it was something just switched right there at, I don't know, it must have been sometime around 12, 1 o'clock. It might have been closer to 1 o'clock. I think it was third period. That's where I got kind of more of a roll and started catching them. And it was because I saw them float up like that and get up kind of high in the water. And it showed me how many fish were there that I didn't even know were there.
Right.
And they just showed themselves to me, and they were pretty active. You know, if I could see them from a long ways away, I was able to catch them. Yeah.
Wow. Were they up in the shade, or were they just out in the sun? Just
Both, but I mean,
weird?
it was when I first saw them, they were in the sun,
Weird.
and then I would slow down in shade pockets and fish those without really seeing them, just because I couldn't see in the shade pockets. But you know, I'd cast the shade pockets. Other than that, I'd be going down the bait, casting, you know, going down the you know, the bank and docks and stuff, and just looking. They'd be on the sides of the docks, or they'd be out in front of the docks. I mean, the one spot where I really saw it, I saw one, and he wouldn't bite, and I went down the bank a little bit farther, and I saw another one, and I cast to him, and he swam right to my bait but wouldn't bite, and he started swimming down the bank, and I let him, and he bit. I was throwing a little wacky rig.
Okay.
It's actually the Daiwa worm.
Oh, the guys had him in here yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, the Nako worm is made by Yamamoto. It's a really good bait. And that's the one I was throwing, wacky rigged, weightless. And the problem with these fish that were in the, you know, high in the water column like that is that I think they are so active on the splash of when the bait hit the water.
Yep.
Almost like they're keying in on dragonflies. I've seen that in the past.
That's what my thought was. Some kind of bug.
And the problem with that is that they're so concerned with getting to it as soon as it hits the water.
It's sinking past them.
I think they kind of miss it a little bit, or they grab half the bait. I can't tell you how many I watched. I throw, and they instantly grab it. My line's streaking off, and I go to set the hook on them, and my worm's gone. I yanked the worm off, so they only get half the bait because they're so fast to grab it. It's probably, you know, hindsight, I probably should just let them run for a second and let them take the whole bait. But you know, it wasn't. I didn't jerk on it that fast. I thought I was waiting long enough, but I had to be that first splash and then just darting to grab it. I mean, a lot of them, I'd throw it, I wouldn't even see them. I'd throw it up there, and the bait would hit, and I'd see the water boil 3 feet away, and I'd see my line jump. So you know, they were.
You could have freaked everybody out, pull a fly rod out of the boat.
I know, really.
What is he doing?
Well, did you throw topwater in any of those fish?
You know, I didn't. There's so much growth, you know, torn up grass, and there was moss, and there was cottonwood. I'm telling you right now, the person that invented the cottonwood tree needs to be throat punched because that stuff is so annoying trying to fish around it.
Right now.
So there was just too much debris to throw it. They probably would have bit it, but I mean, I just felt like I could land more with a you know, wacky rig like that, or maybe get more bites. Shoot, I probably could have caught them a lot better if I threw a topwater, but I didn't do it.
Well, and you're sticking with what you know, and what you had the confidence. In at the time.
Well, and if you throw the first one you see and he goes and
it's
why
right.
Would you
why
try
would you
anything
change
else?
it all? Right.
Like,
Well, I was just saying because of the circumstances where they were, you know, short striking you. If they would have crushed the topwater a little bit hard.
They were biting it so good that I just didn't really think of
it doesn't even
if they weren't biting, then I would try to do something else. But I mean, they were biting, and it, you know, it was just I felt like I was doing the right thing, but it was just they weren't easy to catch, even though they were biting. It was interesting.
Right.
So.
Well, and it worked for you. I mean,
it did.
Obviously, you caught. Were you said you saw multiple bass at one time? I mean, the race is probably to get to that.
When I first saw it, there was one spot, and I saw about 5 keepers, you know, over a pound. They were all, you know, in that 1.5 to 2 pound range, and one all within a cast. And I'd throw it the first little group, and then they'd kind of settle down. I wouldn't, you know, every cast, one would yank my worm off, one would yank my worm off, and then finally I'd catch a keeper.
Nice.
And then I'd throw to another one, he wouldn't bite, and then I'd throw out there, and another one would steal my worm, and then all of a sudden they'd all settle down. I wouldn't see them anymore. So then I'd go down the bank and find, you know, another one up like that, and I kind of just kept rolling from there. And
man, that's crazy though.
It was weird, and I want to say.
Did you come back through? Did they come up again, or?
I came back through, and I didn't see them as well. No, I came back through a second time, and yes, they were up. I think I caught one more, and every time I'd kind of get through the areas, I could catch one, and you know, but it was just this one point of the day they did that, and then they didn't do it. You know, we got to the period, so it happened right before the period break, I think, and then we started the next period break, and they'd all settled and were down. I couldn't see them anymore.
Okay.
And I changed areas, and I did go by where I saw a couple, and they wouldn't bite, but it gave me the confidence that I went down the bank a little ways, came back, and slowed down, and I was able to catch every one that I saw.
Nice.
So I think the real big key to that for guys that, you know, weekend guys or just guys learning to fish is just really being in the moment, be where your feet are, kind of a thing. Like, pay attention to what they're showing you.
Yeah,
that's probably. I'm assuming you didn't see that in practice. Right?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it the day before when I fished, and I was actually about to change areas and run, you know, 10, 15 minutes away to a completely different spot. And when I saw those fish, I decided to stay, and it worked because I was able to catch enough.
That's awesome.
And make that cut.
Nice.
Very cool.
And it's kind of cool now because you can talk about the Bago stuff now, right?
Technically, we probably shouldn't because, you know, the lakes are connected. Even though we can't go back on Winnebago, you know, we fished in the Carolinas earlier in the year, and we fished separate lakes entirely. They weren't even attached in any way, and we couldn't talk with other anglers about what happened.
All right. Well, I'm not like I would really wanted to, but I just didn't know if you know how much because it's over with. I mean, at least for you.
You would think, you would think that, you know, because I'm still fishing, I can't talk to another angler about what happened because you could. I promise you could relate something on Winnebago to the other lakes, especially since they're attached.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. So now you said you spent a little bit of time on one of the upper lakes.
I did.
Practice. So do you think that gives you a big upper hand heading into Saturday?
It's hard to say. I mean, if they open up the body of water where we can go on to Winneconne, at least I've, you know, have seen what it looks like. I, you know, ran around the lake a little bit. You know, I'm going to try and take this as the crucial part for me is going to be that first run period. You know, we take off at 6:30, but we can't start fishing till 7. So I'm going to have a full 30 minutes to run around, you know, as fast as I can and look for something. If something jumps out, I might start and do something completely different.
Are they launching you guys somewhere else, or are they launching you in Neenah and having?
Oh, no, we'll launch over there somewhere. I'm not sure what ramp we'll be at yet.
It's in Winneconne, actually.
Oh, really?
Well, it depends because now is it Butte-Mort? Is that how you say it? Okay, so Butte-Mort. There's a specific boat ramp we were supposed to launch at there. Now, if it was windy on Winnebago, then we would launch on a boat ramp on Winneconne.
Okay.
So I don't know what ramp they're going to use, or I don't even know if they're going to open up both lakes. They may only keep the one lake open.
Oh, okay.
Because originally that's what they said. The way the breakdown was, we were fishing Winnebago for the first 2 days. Then the knockout round, which is tomorrow, was going to be on Butte des Mortes. Winneconne was the wind contingency lake. So if we got blown out on Winnebago, then that was the lake they were going to run us to. So we wouldn't have a day that was canceled. We would still be able to, proceed through the week. And so I don't know yet what we're going to do.
That'll be interesting.
When do you get to find that out?
They'll tell us this afternoon. It's
okay. So after like weigh-ins done.
Yeah. Exactly. So what's happening is that they are suggesting to maybe possibly open up both lakes. If that's the case, they're going to have every angler that qualified for the knockout round agree to open up both lakes, because
all of them.
Just the 2 lakes, not
but you said all the anglers, so they all 40 guys.
I think so. It has to be a group decision. It's not something that if people are against it and people are for it, they're not going to do it. It has to be a either unanimous or a good majority. I'm not sure yet.
It didn't sound like a lot of guys left Winnebago either. It sounded like a lot of guys stuck right to Winnebago to figure that game out, and they'll just on the fly figure out the rest of the stuff. Yeah,
and that's kind of the way I approached it, but based on the forecast, it was telling us that the first day of the tournament was going to be 15 to 25 mile an hour winds, so I figured they were going to cancel it and throw us over on Winneconne. So I forced myself to go over there. But originally, if wind wasn't a part of it, I wasn't planning on fishing a second on the other lake, because if you spend time over there and you don't make it, what's the point? You wasted time over on that lake that you should have been trying to find something on the one lake to get you to that next lake. So
get there first.
You're kind of like, it's counting your chickens before they hatch type of thing,
You guys are all good enough. You can make a plan, sight unseen, but it's still, you might have the upper hand on that notion just because a lot of guys didn't leave Bago.
I hope so. I found a few things that I kind of liked. I actually spent 2 hours the first day of practice, and I think 3 hours the second day of practice, and I didn't fish that much on the first day. I ran around looking at things. Yep. And then the second day I fished a little bit, and I caught a few fish, and I feel like I've had something that I wanted to look for.
Perfect.
But we'll find out tomorrow morning, I guess.
So is that part of the plan, like with that half an hour run time, so guys can kind of scout a little bit ahead of time?
I think originally when we started the Major League Fishing format, it was showing up on lakes that we'd never been to before. So that was why they gave us that runaround period, is to look to find something. And it started off originally with only 15 minutes, and then they've upped it a little bit just to kind of help us have a little bit more time to run around and look.
30 minutes isn't a long time.
No,
it's
on a
not.
lake you've never seen before.
No, it's
especially if they're not small bodies of water.
Right.
If the river does become a player, I don't know, man. That's not. I don't want to say too much.
Well, you know what I mean. Like Winnebago is 130,000 acres.
Yep.
It's a lot of water, right?
Yeah.
Well, Winneconne's 6. Poigin's 9, Butte des Mortes 13,000. There's still a lot of water.
Right.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes, you gotta.
Yeah. You couldn't cover both lakes in 30 minutes. So you probably couldn't even cover one of the lakes in a half an hour. But I promise you'll find something that you like in a half hour to start and see what happens. At least give you something
to start with. It's awesome. It's really intriguing to me to have that gun to your head, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, 30 minutes goes really fast.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
I wish I had more knowledge, because I kind of want to have just slip something up so I can see him have to text message it right now.
We're not going to do that.
I know. We're not going to do that, but I just want to see something. I just want to see him be like, gosh darn it, now I got to send a text message. Why did you tell me? Did that happen at all to you at all?
It did, actually. It did. I had a friend that I'm actually going to leave my rig with after this tournament. I'm going to fly home, and I sent him a text. I go, hey, man, I'm just checking to see if you got space for the rig. I'm going to head your way after Winnebago. And he goes, oh, man, that place, you replied, oh, that place is great. I finished second up the river with an A rig and an A rig and a Ned rig. I'm like, dude, I can't get any info.
It's in a text message even.
So I just copied and pasted and sent it to the tournament director and said, man, I just got this. I don't know what that means. I don't know where up the river is.
Right.
I go, we can't throw an A rig. I go, I've got the Ned rig tied on already, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
you and everybody else.
I know. So
yeah, it's like the yeah. I
Oh,
don't.
who was that yesterday? It was like I just wanted to send something like I heard 10 XDs and 3 feet of water ripped
Yeah, I
through the
think
weeds or something.
it was Cody Meyer. It was Cody Meyer.
I just want to see if it
Well,
shows
that's
up
what
on
I'm
the
saying.
text.
I just want something to I just want to see something silly. We won't see it, but I want to hear
Well, we did get one of the text messages where you could tell that they were, the director was kind of like had enough of it, because the text came in and said, how did he say it? He goes, an angler was told that there's some fish shallow, and he goes, and then the thing was, that's very vague, or something, in parentheses. It was like, that's pretty vague.
That was what happened was Cody pulled out his phone yesterday.
That's what it was.
And was showing us some of the messages, and he brought up that shallow one, and the next response was, duh.
Yeah.
I'm sure they really frown upon on messing with it, right? I mean, it's
this is the first time that we've had very few up until this point, and I don't know if it was because I don't know why it happened at this one, but I bet you we've had.
Wisconsin.
Well, no, it's not that. People talk to us all the time. It's. I think that it was more along the lines that people were more worried about hearing information. I mean, it all comes down to if you get protested or if you get polygraphed in this, that if you hear something and you don't make it known,
yep.
You're going to be thinking that you heard something, and if you take a polygraph test and you fail it, then it's not good.
Well, I think a part of that might have been nobody's ever been here before.
Right.
Not a lot.
Correct.
I mean, maybe a couple guys have been or whatever.
I don't think too many guys have been
often,
here.
So it's like if somebody was on some real key, whatever. How'd you figure that out in a day and a half?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
I think that's really interesting. That whole polygraph piece and then the information sharing piece, that's something I didn't know until we met some of you guys.
Yep.
They obviously don't make it public, but it's really interesting that it's kind of, I don't want to say policed like that, but it's kind of.
Right. It is. And, every tournament organization that I've fished with since I've started has incorporated a polygraph test. And it's always been a random, and it is in this random polygraph test unless someone has protested for something. If something comes up, if there's an issue, then they're able to use that truth verification test to do it. Now, the thing that's really changed with this format is not being able to share information with other anglers, too.
Right.
So in the past, it was, we weren't allowed to get information from people not in the tournament.
Okay. But if you roomed with somebody, you could.
Yeah. And there's a lot of guys that had a system. There's a handful of groups of guys out there in this circuit that, when we fish bass, the last couple of years, that you'd have this community of guys that would all share information and share waypoints and share everything to where, a handful of people would get clued into catching fish on a certain body of water that shouldn't have. And so that's why this thing kind of came about, to kind of eliminate that. Let's try and make this. Let's try and see who catches them without getting the information.
Well, the walleye world's real heavy in those teams. 4 or 5 guys all share everything.
Right.
Yeah.
They might even share prize money. Who knows what their arrangement is? But it gets to the point where if you go to a certain lake, so you don't have that 5 or 6 boats to help break down that body of water, it's really difficult to do it by yourself.
Right.
For sure.
Nice.
Yep.
So we got some random questions here that I've been asking a lot of guys, and some of them are from staff here at the Reel Shot. So one we found out from Ish yesterday was a really good question, is craziest confrontation on the water. In a tournament, not in a tournament, it doesn't matter. Do you have one like that?
And did you film it on a GoPro?
No, I don't have anything on camera. I've never had anything crazy happen, on the water. I mean, if you talk about a confrontation, you have ospreys that dive bomb you all the time because they don't like you being close to their nest.
There you go.
But I've never had a confrontation with
Not another
a person.
Okay.
Anglers, yeah, you get in
Right.
arguments and stuff on the water, but it's nothing crazy, you know.
Yep.
Words,
Turf battles.
yeah,
well,
words.
that's the thing, you know.
Usually comes with a guy pulling on you, and it gets to the point where you've had enough, you know. And
So
and,
you make the run instead of. I mean, if you were Ish Monroe, you just would have hit his boat and then threw him in the water.
yeah.
Or no, they would have hit your boat and then you would have threw him in the water.
Ish definitely has a good story for that one,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
but
we heard it yesterday.
yeah,
And he was surprised that we haven't heard the story yet. I'm
I
like,
never heard it.
all right, okay. So you're an honest guy. I mean, we know that. This one tripped up Stephen Browning pretty good. It says, if you could only fish one body of water for either the rest of your life or the rest of your tournament life, what would it be? And you don't have to give out like exact specifics if you don't want to. I mean, we're not looking for GPS coordinates unless you want to share them.
No, man. I have a couple places that that I really like. You know, one is Lake St. Clair up in Michigan.
Okay.
It's just such a fun body of water to fish. You know, when you get around these schools of smallmouth, it's so fun catching them.
Yep.
There's so many down there. That's one place that has always stood out to me. Falcon Lake in Texas is another place that has always stood out. The fish are so mean down there. They're a different breed of fish. There's something about them that they're so aggressive. They're so mean. And I like that desert kind of Texas feel down there too.
I mean, from being from California, does that?
It does. You know, we fished a lot of the Colorado River chain. So Meade, Mojave, Havasu, Lake Powell. There's just something about the desert lakes like that. They all have a certain feel to them. And to me, that's kind of home because I grew up fishing those lakes. And I felt at home at Falcon. I feel at home at Lake Amistad as well because it just has that desert feel. Now, believe me, I don't live in the desert, but those are places that I fished a lot, and so it just kind of felt like, you know, it doesn't matter what it's the smell, the birds that are out there, the birds that are chirping, and you get in certain, you know, pockets that just has that same feel to it. When it rains, you know, in the desert, there's a certain smell of the rain in the desert. Everything about it, not just the fishing, is it just kind of nostalgic to me. So it kind of brought that back to me going to.
So maybe that Falcon Lake would be one.
Yeah.
That would be up a higher one.
I've heard that's pretty awesome.
The fish are big. They're mean. I mean, the strikes are so aggressive there. It's different than anything else around the country. So really a fun place.
Road trip.
We were looking to replace our July trip that got canceled. So I think we know what's going on. Texas.
Just drive to Texas.
Well, you guys need to do it in the wintertime because it's when it's ice here, they're spawning down there. So
right.
What
you
time?
guys
Like February time frame?
Probably February. Yeah, February would be a good time to be
perfect.
there.
I'm ready to get the heck out of Wisconsin. Anyways.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do that.
All right, if Molly's listening, we're headed to Texas. All right, now one of the ones that's come up quite a bit is the banana thing. Are you a banana guy in the boat? Or are you not superstitious?
I'm not. I don't care.
You see, and that's. So far, I think
I might be the only one on planet Earth that doesn't want a banana in my boat.
Well, no, I think
there's plenty.
Ish
there's
Monroe
plenty
was
guys.
that way, too. Otherwise, Cody, Steven, and Randy Howell, they didn't care. I think Randy Howell said, I'll eat a banana right in front of you. I don't really care. You know?
It's probably making me. I got to rethink that whole thing. I got to change my game up.
You know, every morning, so I always launch the boat early, and Shaw Grigsby is probably one of the only anglers that's launches his boat before me. And every time I launch the boat, tied up the dock, go park the truck, come walking back, and he's always just sitting there in his boat eating a banana. So I know
it works for him.
It's legit. So give us a brief background on how you got your start and everything like that.
You got it. So I grew up in Redlands, California. I still live there, Southern California, and there's two little ponds in a park there, and that was the first place I ever went fishing. My dad took me there, and the first fish I ever caught was just on a little, night crawler, and it has a little walkway that goes around the pond, and where they poured the concrete, there's these little washouts underneath where there's a little ledge, and I remember just dropping that little night crawler down. I just watched the bluegill swim right out and eat it, and that was enough to get me hooked right then and there. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen to see this little fish swim out and eat that worm. And I fished there all the time, just whatever pulled the bobber under. I didn't really care. And later on in life, we I was maybe 3-4 years later, we were heading to Lake Havasu. My family used to go out there in the summers just to hang out and water ski and that kind of stuff. And I would always fish for whatever bit, and my mom was reading to me in a magazine how to rig a plastic worm. And we're in our motorhome driving across the desert to get to Lake Havasu, and I rigged up this plastic worm. We get the campsite set up, and I walked down to the boat dock just to see what this worm looked like, and I dropped it straight down. A bass swam right over and ate it. So my very first cast bass fishing, I caught a bass, and I was toast after that.
Yeah,
it was nothing but bass fishing. I joined a club when I was in college, a local club in Riverside, California called the Point Seekers, and I fished a couple tournaments with them, and then I fished some amateur tournaments as a co-angler, and then started fishing as a boater in these pro-ams, and then started fishing the Everstarts. When FLW came out, I fished the Bass Opens when they were out west, and then I started fishing the FLW Tour in 2005, and I've been fishing the national circuit since then.
Wow.
I fished FLW for 10 years, and then Bass for 4 years, and then now right here for Major League Fishing.
Right.
Awesome.
That's probably the best story we've heard so far. I mean, you remember the exact bites?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty legit.
That's funny.
Now, do you remember what combination you started with, though? What the rod reel was?
No, I don't.
Nobody's messed up and said it was a Zepco push button.
No, I don't. I did have a push button, I know, when I first started, and then I remember I graduated. I think for Christmas I got one of those spinning reels, and that was the coolest thing. I remember seeing those. That's all I wanted.
Did you reel it with the reel back? Did you?
I don't know. I don't remember that, but I will tell you this. I when I got into bass fishing, he's a friend of mine now, but I went to a seminar, and Jimmy Houston was there, Rich Tauber, Don Iovino, he's a big guy out west. I wonder if Nixon was there. I can't remember, but it was a circuit that traveled around Bass University. Not the Ike and Ellie one. I think Ike bought the rights to it. I don't know that background, but it was called Bass University, and it was a traveling seminar circuit. And I met Rich Tauber, and my dad actually took me to this seminar for my birthday. The very next year for my birthday, my dad hired Rich to take me on a guide trip. Rich was a guide.
Oh,
he was a tournament fisherman and a guide. And at the time, Rich was sponsored by Daiwa, and he had a signature Daiwa rod with the Daiwa Whisker SS 1300 was the reel. It's a black and gold reel. They still make it today. They still make it and sell it. That
awesome.
Was the coolest spinning reel that I'd ever had in my life for a number of years.
Yep.
And I promise you, from that time on, I was probably 12 or 13, I think, when this happened. I was probably 12 or 13 when I got my first Daiwa SS 1300, and since that day I've had a Daiwa spinning reel for my entire career.
I feel like that's what Ish said too. Same reel.
Yeah, it's a gold spool with a black.
And he said it's the same reel, and he said that Daiwa still makes.
They still make it. It was a revolutionary reel because it was there's a spring in the bail. And this one had a roller to where you could never break the spring in there because it didn't have a spring.
Okay.
It had a roller to where when you turned the handle, the bail hit a roller and snapped the bail back over instead of having a spring. And it was such a bulletproof reel that, literally, they still sell it today. It's such a good selling reel that they keep making it.
Yeah.
So we got a question here. So
nice.
Josh Graham says, good luck and hope to see you on BG. I'm assuming he means Big Green, which is Sunday's Lake. He said, is there a body of water you'd like to see added to the MLF lineup now that you can go to smaller bodies of water?
Of course, but I don't have any names because I live in California.
Right.
I mean, literally the only lakes that I fish outside of California are the lakes that the tournament organization takes us to.
Okay.
And I don't have the opportunity to go and fish some of these lakes that, like Green Lake, for example, or even Winnebago. I would never travel to Winnebago to go fishing because I live in California.
Yep.
And, my boat and truck are back east, but they go from X lake to X lake that the organization tells me I have to go to. So I really don't. We have a good board right now that's researching lakes to go to next year, and they ask my opinion, and I go, look, I can give you all the lakes you want out west, but when you go east of Arizona, I'm out because I know nothing. I don't know any of the smaller lakes, but I love the idea of having some of these smaller lakes, and breaking it up to where you can have it on different lakes.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of neat to do that,
So it really just comes down to cell coverage. I mean, if
that is the bottom line.
Yep.
Yeah, cell coverage.
Yep.
And then also, a city and town to accommodate a couple hundred people coming in just for us alone.
That was a good question.
Yeah, that was a really good question. So we got through quite a bit of mine. Off-season stuff. You and I personally talked about this, but we didn't talk about it on the show. What kind of things do you do in the off-season?
I love golfing. My dad was a really good golfer, and he taught me how to golf, and I got out of it for a few years, but then in the last 2, I've really picked it back up again, and I haven't golfed in probably 6 weeks right now, and it's killing me.
Is it really?
Yeah, I get to go home here in a couple days, so I can't wait to go and play again. But
now you in the Red Crest?
I am in the Red Crest.
So you'll be back here in Wisconsin in a few weeks?
Yeah, I'll be back here in August. I was fortunate enough to kind of have a good enough cushion to where, even if I did bad at this tournament, I was still going to make it. So
nice.
That part was good, and I'm anxious to go and fish that on lacrosse.
Yeah, that's.
So your truck and boat will stay in Wisconsin until you come back in August?
Yeah, well, I'll run it over to
yeah.
Minneapolis. I have a friend that lives over there. I'm going to go fish, I think, Tonka a day, and then run over. I have to do a writers conference for Gamakatsu and Sunline in Winona, but on the river there.
Oh, perfect.
And then that'll be early August, and I'll go home again, and then come right back to the border there, fish lacrosse for the Red Crest.
That's awesome. Nice. Dude, I'm trying to think of some of these other good questions we had yesterday. You're doing such a great job. I mean, you're using all my questions just on your own. But otherwise, you like the Bago system. Favorite thing about the MLF?
Honestly, the thing I like the most, there's a couple things actually. I can't say the most, but the one thing that jumps out of my on my mind right now is the fact that when the day's over, you don't have to race back to the weigh-in to be there at a certain point in time. So you take the first day of the tournament, it was blowing 20, 25 miles an hour, and there's 4-footers out there.
Right.
I don't have to race in 4-footers and tear my equipment to get there.
Yep.
I can fish until the deadline, and I can cruise in as fast or as slow as I want.
Yep.
That part I really like because it just saves your equipment.
Well, it saves the equipment and the fuel economy.
Right.
Obviously, is a
that
huge deal.
saves your back, saves everything.
Yeah.
So that part I really like. The other thing I really like is I do enjoy the fact about not having a limit. And, there's a big controversy on that. People either love it or hate it. I think that the people that hate it's because all they've ever known is 5 fish.
Yep.
And I actually have a little, not a saying, but I have something to say that. It's kind of a end of days deal, okay? So if you think about it, if we go fishing, the 3 of us, and you go out and you catch 5 fish for 20 pounds, okay, but you catch 5 all day.
Yep.
All right? Well, you got 20 pounds. That's great. Well, you caught, let's say 15, 20 fish for 20 pounds.
What's the difference?
Okay. End of days, if I needed to survive, I'm going to choose you to go fishing with or to stay alive because tomorrow you might catch 3.
Right.
Okay? If you catch, if you catch 15,
yep.
Obviously that's going to be better.
No, that's a good
way to look at it. For
sure.
Now here's the other thing too that people don't think about is they say, oh, it's so easy to catch these 1-pounders. I promise you, it is harder to do well in weighing every fish than it is a 5-fish limit. I promise you, it's harder to do well, and the reason for that is that you can't gamble in this format. You can't run to try and get that big bite. You can't change a strategy. You can't change locations.
No. Yep.
You can't gamble and make a long run because when you stop from making that long run, you're now in the hole. Okay? You gamble and you try and find that different pattern to get some different bites, you're in the hole because they keep catching them.
Yep.
It is harder to do well in this format than is a 5-fish limit because in my career, I felt like I've done better by catching a few fish, getting that limit, and then stretching it, fishing water you haven't fished yet and moving on and trying to expand on what you've learned. And you get one of those, 1 or 2 of those key bites to jump your weight up higher. You can't do that in this format.
No. And we've talked about that quite a bit with the score tracker, constantly knowing what's going on. And and that's just got to be agonizing at times.
It is, and the more we're only one season in. This is our 8th tournament, so we're still new. There's still a lot to learn, but from what I've seen right now, it's harder to do well in this format than it is a 5-fish limit.
I think it gets rid of the luck factor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, you go, you could have 10 pounds and 2 casts.
Yep.
Correct.
Might not, you know what I mean?
Well,
a guy
exactly
and
like
I'm not saying that he didn't earn that, but
Right.
it could have been 2 lucky casts, too.
Right.
Correct.
In a 5-fish tournament.
And you see that a lot where a guy has a big stringer for 5.
I had my limit by 9:30 and didn't catch another fish all day.
Well,
right? Is that skill or is that luck at that point?
Exactly
Well, see,
what
that's
Brent just said, yep.
Yeah, and that's, you see that a lot. And believe me, I've been on both ends where, I caught 5 all day.
Right.
But I caught a good set of 5, but
Yep.
I'm really scared the next day because I literally had 5 bites all day, and I've had that happen where you go out the next day and you catch 3.
Right.
And a guy, just barely beat me or whatever, and he's like, man, it was so fun out there. I was catching 30 a day, and I'm like, dude, I caught 8 bass in 2 days, and you caught 60.
Yep.
Well, he smoked me in this format, and he should have because he caught him better than I did.
Yep.
So
well, and that's what Wiggins just got done saying with the Bassmaster Classic. He goes, he caught the right fish during practice and everything. He goes, if it was MLF format for that one, he goes, nobody would have stood a chance. Well, and we watched Ike do the same thing at that tournament. We found him. Brian got lucky and found him where he was.
Lucky.
As in, was it
that
not
was
lucky?
Skill, dude.
Oh, whatever. He was
flat out skill.
All right, so Brian found some skill, but either way, we watched Ike throw back quite a few too. I mean,
really?
I personally, I'm a big fan of it. I like seeing hook sets, and I think most of the viewers do as well.
I think the anglers like doing it.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
whether it's a 1-pounder or it's 5, 7, 6-pounder.
Yeah, and it's it's an adjustment period still, and some people aren't on board, but if they haven't seen the show, then I don't know why they're not on board. It's really fun to see, and it's I've only gotten a chance to watch a few of them so far this year because it's just. One, we're not allowed to watch during the tournament, and then when the tournament's over, I'm either traveling. If I don't make the cut, I'm traveling and not able to watch. There was one tournament where I was able to watch, and it was so fun seeing how it went down and just what the guys are doing. And you get so jacked up watching it. You start rooting for people or not rooting for people, and you just watch this thing.
We'll be able to see that tomorrow. As the day goes on, you get to that third period. Who's on that bubble top 10 to make it to Sunday?
Yep.
That pressure you don't get that in a normal tournament.
You do
don't
not
have score tracker and whatever.
No.
And like we said that watching Edwin yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Just
yeah.
And you can see the last 20 minutes.
It's
just
crazy,
coming in on them.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You can just see the pressure just coming in. And we'll see it again tomorrow. Who's ever in that 10th, 11th spot?
There's nothing. I mean, what's so crazy is how many times, and it happened to me one time this year too. How many times someone gets a bite in the last minutes or seconds of the day to advance them into the next round. So it happened to me at Smith Lake in Alabama. I was in 9th place with 30 minutes to go.
Oh, man.
Okay. And I knew that if I didn't catch one, that I was going to get knocked out of the 10 cut to make the final day. And he didn't say anything to me. I didn't ask where am I sitting because I knew. We're down to minutes.
Yep.
And I get to this one spot. I knew where this brush pile was, and he goes, 2-minute warning. He tells me, and he goes 1 minute, and I fished a little bit longer. I reel in, and he goes 45 seconds. And I make a cast, and I go, I'm going to leave it down there until it's lines in. I'm going to fish it, but I'm not going to. A lot of times when you're in a hurry, the bait hits the bottom. And you shake it once, you reel in, and you cast it again because you're constantly thinking of that next cast instead of focusing on the one that's actually placed. And I told myself, I'm going to leave it there. And I bet you it wasn't down there for 15 seconds, and my line jumped. Or actually, it was probably longer because I set the hook, and I remember asking how much time, and he said 20 seconds.
It has to be in at the end of the time.
It has to be inside the gunnel at the time.
Lines
So I hooked the fish with about 20 seconds and fought it. And it might have been just a hair over that, but I swung it over the gunnel with, I want to say about 15 seconds left. And, okay, so I was in 9th place prior to that fish, or within 30 minutes to go. When I swung it over the gunnel, my official goes, I hope that's enough. So I knew then that I was out. He knew. He's looking at the board, so he knew I was out. And I swung it over, and he goes, all right, you made it in time. We weighed it, and he goes, all right. He goes, you're back in 9th place right now. Well, we do everything. We sign the board. We're idling out. I'm like, man, I can't believe I made it. And he goes, I go, let's wait because things happen at the end, and sometimes it takes just like I want to say about 2 minutes.
Well,
and
we
things
saw that with
set.
Ike in the first one.
Yeah.
So I ended up in 10th place because Brent Chapman caught a 3-pounder within. He swung it over with like 5 seconds. So
man.
he was in 10th or 11th, and it bumped. He jumped ahead of me, which bumped me to 10th. And Sprague was in 9th with seconds to go, and he gets bumped to 11th.
Oh.
So with 30 seconds to go,
that's brutal.
He's in 9th place, and now he's in 11th.
How big was your bass?
I think it was a 114. So
that's awesome.
And he was out. I want to say I beat Sprague finished in 11th. I finished in 10th, and I had him by 6 or 8 ounces or something. So
God.
it was really close. So that has happened at every single tournament.
Yep. That right there is why people should watch more ML.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah.
For those
to see that go down live is insane.
And just listening to you talk about it right now, I'm like, oh my God. It's like hitting
crazy.
a 3-pointer at the buzzer.
Oh, it is.
Yep.
It is, 100%.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Man. Well, cool, man. There's a pile of people showing up here. I think we want to get you out there to sign some autographs and, everything like that. Again, we appreciate you coming in today.
You bet.
Making time. We was a slight confusion.
Yeah.
We worked our schedules out where you can make it in today.
Yeah.
And before
it wasn't our fault.
No. And it was funny because I was talking to Brad, our Iowa rep, yesterday, and it wasn't Kurt is the guy that sent the email, right?
It was Kurt, yeah.
Yeah, but I think there was a Greg in here yesterday. I apologize, Greg. I don't remember.
Oh, Greg came in, yeah. Greg was up here, yeah.
What's his last name again?
Johnson, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so he was in here, but we had some confusion on the schedules. We worked it out. You were able to, make your schedule work for us to be here today. But we do have to get a picture. Zach's been taking good quality pictures, but Brad wants us to send some pictures to Iowa so they can prove that you were showing up.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. I need it.
Hopefully
Thank
we
you.
get to see you on Sunday.